Mac Miller, Teddy Swims, The Weeknd, Her, Beyoncé, Camila Cabello, Kelly Clarkson, Dominic Fike, Usher, J-Lo, the list goes on and on and on.
I forgot how many people I've worked with. I remember when I did Come Back to Earth by Mac Miller, this was a rapper being vulnerable, and then he passed right after the song came out. I realized that that's my purpose in life. Hozier's a jazz fan. He's one of the few artists, and Her, the artist Her is like that. The artist Anderson .Paak is like that. We hang out and there's things that we don't even talk about, and then one day we'll bring it up. We haven't said all there is to be said yet.
Welcome to another episode of Songs You Know, and I have a very, very special guest today, Jeff Gitty. Did I say that right, Gitty?
My real name is, because I'm Russian, my real name is Yevgeny Semyonovich Gittelman.
I could never pronounce that. Yevgeny Semyonovich.
Yevgeny. Semyonovich Gittelman.
Gittelman.
Yeah, you did it pretty well.
Wow.
Which I'm told is a German name. Gittelman, I'm told is
Gittelman.
Yeah. But Gitty, it's easy for everybody. We just do Gitty.
So everyone who doesn't know who Gitty is, I'm sure you have heard his music. The music is absolutely incredible. You've worked with some of the best artists like Hozier. And I want to dig into all these songs in a bit with Mac Miller, Jelly Roll, Jesse Murph, Teddy Swims a lot, The Weeknd, Her, Beyoncé, Money Long, Camila Cabello, Kelly Clarkson, Dominic Fike, Usher, J-Lo, the list goes on and on and on.
Well, I forgot how many people I've worked with until you just read all that. I'm like, wow. Yeah.
That's absolutely incredible. But more than the names, the music itself is just beautiful. And you have your very own signature and your very own sound. And I think on Billboard, you're in 3 of the top 10 producer charts of what is like top country producer?
It was a
top
thing.
R&B producer?
Yeah. It was R&B. It was the top 10 of R&B, top 10 of country, and the top 10 overall. It was a cool statistic. I like numbers. Why not? Just coming up from like a really artistic musical world, it is nice now to. I've been like shouting from the rooftops, "Hey guys, I'm good. I'm pretty good." I've been for 10 years. I was like, "Hey, I like country music. Can somebody put me in the country?" No, okay. Hey, I want to make. So now to have the numbers really do all the talking and you know it's really nice because. I don't think that music is a competition. I don't think it's a numerical thing. I think it's subjective. But man, the numbers sometimes just give you the freedom to make the art you want to make.
So I want to dig a little bit into the songs. Hozier, is it the most recent album you did with him?
Yeah. So he basically did we did a long creative period of music, and from there he's released 3 EPs and like an album, all based around this whole thing. So it was like we just made a bunch of songs, and then he released the EP, then an album, then another EP, then another EP. So it's been a lot of releases. But yes, it's this most recent chapter of Hozier's.
How do you collaborate with him? How's the?
Well, we started in the quarantine, and it was just on Zoom, and then I just said, you know what, man, I'm gonna fly to Ireland. And so in the middle, he lives in Wicklow County, which is a ways from Dublin, and it's just the country. And so in the middle of the quarantine, right dead smack in the middle of the quarantine, I took an international trip. It was a lot.
And you were quarantine buddies for how long?
We were quarantine buddies, I spent a couple of weeks over there just to get started in his house, and it was cool. We did a lot of talking, a lot of hanging, talking about literature. It was a new experience for me because a lot of times, we people come and you go, okay, where are you from? Blah, blah, blah. It's a speed dating thing. All right, let's write the song with him. Like I think the first day or two, we just spent time talking about James Joyce and Van Morrison.
What are some books that you love and that Hozier loves?
Look, I'm not that well read in Irish literature. However, I am a big fan of James Joyce and particularly the Dubliners. So we spoke quite a bit about that. Look, Andrew's literature is different, and we do have different tastes. My humor is I'm a little bit more of a Bukowski kind of a humor, like I'm in a lot of rap sessions, and so a little shock and vulgarity is kind of in my taste. Andrew's a little different. He's a little more reserved. So, but no, I honestly, yeah, it was nice to just learn and get a glimpse into his brain, and it inspired me to come back and to just go back to listen to the shit that I love, like Paul Simon. We actually really connected over Paul Simon.
Amazing, yeah. And then your go-to instrument would be the piano or the guitar, or
the guitar. But with Andrew, it was a little bit of all three. We do synths, bass, guitar, piano. But him being a guitar player, I think we were a good match because I was able to. I think most of the time he said he's an amazing musician, and most of the time he worked, I think, with producers who weren't as good of a guitar player as him. So and I think with me, I've pat myself on the back, but yeah, I think with me, I was able to show him stuff, and he kind of took a backseat. He really didn't do much. Other songs that I produced, I don't think he did much guitar playing, but let me tell you, he's an incredible guitar player, and seeing him live, he's just a real deal musician.
Now that you said it, can I give you a guitar?
Oh gosh, okay. I love it. I'm not.
Maybe play some bits that inspired songs with Hozier.
Oh gosh.
If you want to.
I don't even know. When I was a kid, I always thought instead of playing I always thought it would be cool to. So he had this, which is really like so my whole goal was, I'm like, how do we combine the folky things, Well, how do we combine it with because I heard his voice, and he has a really powerful voice, but when he gets quiet, he has a really soulful voice. And he was just like enamored with R&B music, like the staple singers. And I was like, staple singers? I'm like, I've never heard anybody mention, the staple singers, or just some old blues records. And so I was like, wow, how do we tackle that? How do we combine the Irish folk sound with that? And so I think something I would be.
Ooh.
And he loved jazz too. Hozier's a jazz fan, so we would. I think we jammed a couple of jazz songs, but it was actually cool because we'd be working for months, and then out of nowhere, I'd just say, "Yo, you ever listen to Elvis Costello?" And he's like, "Yeah." And then we just started nerding out for hours about Elvis Costello, and that's it, never again. And then one day, I was like, "Hey, did you ever listen to Albert King?" He's like, "Oh my God, I love this Albert King song." But man, so we would just just knowing somebody and randomly do you ever read Nietzsche? Oh my God, my favorite, and so I think he's like a well, and I feel like there's still conversations we've never had, what I mean? But yeah, it was, I gotta say, it was one of the few artists, and the artist Her is like that. The artist Anderson .Paak is like that.
I want to hear about all of these.
There's an artist that we hang out, and there's things that we don't even talk about, and one day we'll bring it up. And there's a well of things that we haven't said all there is to be said yet.
So interesting that for you, a writing session isn't really just the music. It's so much deeper. It's like literature. It's common ground that you find in different niches. And
one of the things I'm most afraid of is mediocrity. And now I'm not afraid of it because I've embraced it, but I just have to understand it that there's good and there's great. And so to get to the great things, I feel like you have to see a little imperfection. You have to get under there. You have to get under the hood, and I feel like the most vulnerability and the failures, that's what makes us great. And that's what makes, I think, honesty. And you mentioned Mac Miller. I remember when I did the song Come Back to Earth by Mac Miller, and he, this was a rapper being vulnerable.
Yeah.
And then he passed right after the song came out. And then I saw the reaction, and I realized that maybe that's my purpose in life. And I started to understand my purpose in life is to make whether it's through my music or through my vibe, make the artist comfortable enough to just be their most honest self. Whether it's vulnerability, whether it's talking about the failures, but just make them comfortable enough where we could get to the truth. And I feel like the truth is the most exciting thing. I feel like these days we could all lie about how much money and how much fun we have, but this is the era right now. I call it the era of authenticity. So to me, I've listened to everything from classical music to bluegrass. I feel like the things that excite me the most is just the unapologetic truth.
Yeah, that's profound. It's easily said, like, to get to that truth, sometimes you have to do some digging, right? And you have to, like,
yes,
spend
digging is an
time.
interesting word. Look, I have friends that just need to, they can't do it unless they drink a whole bottle of tequila, and that, and then I'm there with them too. Where other times, I'll be honest with you, it's that's probably still the most challenging thing. And still to these days, I work with like really great, amazing artists who are amazing musicians. Honestly, I'm a little scared of working with great musician artists, because I feel like, and I was just talking about this with the artist, she was saying that it's tough sometimes to work with great musicians, because we as musicians, we're like, oh, okay, let's just talk that language, not realizing like, well, you guys, we've been jamming for an hour, like we haven't gotten to the truth. We're literally just been bullshit, you know what I mean? And so I get afraid when somebody's like, oh, work with this artist, you love them, they play every instrument. I'm like, oh shit. But are we going to be jamming, or are they going to be ready to get to the truth?
So you're a truth seeker.
I guess I just want what's compelling and interesting, and most of the time it's the truth. Like, it's a little tougher to I feel like facts are stranger than fiction, and so the most interesting, compelling shit sometimes is just the most honest things. But if somebody makes up a great story and they have a great imagination, I think Jim Carrey in that movie Being Andy said he's only met two kinds of great people. One, somebody who's unapologetically themselves, but two, they're the greatest pretender of life. Mm-hmm. The people that are in the middle, he's like, they're not great. They're not interesting to me. They get, forgotten about.
So what are your means of, like, how do you coax an artist into this comfort zone where they're willing to open up and cry in front of you? And like, you're a therapist, you're a shrink too.
It's true. It's one of the reasons why I don't use an engineer much sometimes in my writing sessions.
Yeah, privacy in the room, right? You don't want any more people than are needed, like the bare minimum.
Yeah, exactly. And even if they're great, they're quiet. It's just the presence alone creates a little wall sometimes. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it's honestly, and sometimes I think it's just, even though I haven't done this yet, but just even the way the studio is set up, you got the artist and the songwriter, lyricist, whatever, back here on the couch, and I'm over here facing the whole thing. I found it to be super not conducive to great thing. For us, we need to be right here in the thing. And when I'm behind the desk looking, oh, let me just pull up thing, they're talking about something back there, they're sharing about some real crazy information, and my head is turned, so I have to.
You want to be on the couch with them. Yes,
I do. But at the same time, look, I love going to Nashville, and I love the song first, but I also believe that production is a part of the song. And so it's like a balance, because I know that with certain artists, a certain drum groove or a certain production element will inspire a different lyric. And so it's a balance where I want to be on the couch with them, but at the same time, I want to be a step ahead. And so.
But you're like the everything man, right? Quite often you do the beat, you do the guitar, you do the keys, the bass.
Yeah, and I help write with melodies or lyrics or concept. I wouldn't say, I would like to be in a room with somebody like yourself, somebody like T. Ron Thomas, somebody like Ilse, Mickey Echo, Scott Harris, list goes on, but I need those killers in the room with me, because but yeah, in a room like that, I would probably just take the musical side. And again, I think with Andrew, with Hozier, that was it was an interesting time, because I was able to just really, he wrote some amazing lyrics and melodies and songs, and I was able to take that and just kind of do my thing. But I think in this new era of my life, I'm trying to delegate a little bit more. Even if I can do it all, to just delegate and be confident enough with myself that I don't have to do everything. I think for coming up as a producer in the hip hop game, I think I had to prove to myself that I could do it all, you know, and doing drums was a big part of it, because a lot of times I was used as the instrumentalist and somebody would do the drums. One of the things I am most proud of is now people are hearing certain records and they're like, oh, I know that drum sound, that's Gitty's. And I'm like, great, I'm not just known as a guitar player anymore. But now that that's the case, I'm like, I don't have to play drums. I don't have to do it. I'm known, you know, like you could hear a Rick Rubin record, even though he doesn't play an instrument, you could hear it and be like, oh, that sounds like a Rick Rubin production, you know? So I'm in my growth. I'm now just trying to bring in my friends who, you know, who will help us all go further.
So you worked also with Beyoncé, The Weeknd. What were those sessions like?
The Weeknd, I wasn't in the room with Abe at the same time, but there's a moment on the album that they wanted me to do something, and one of the producers, one of Yatrix, he said, I got the guy, and he called me, and it was so funny. It was like too good to be true. I said, they're like, okay, this is what we're looking for. And I was like, okay, let me try like 3 ideas. I tried the first idea, sent it in. He replied, perfect, that's it.
Wow.
I was like, yeah, but I'm going to keep going. So I do like 2, 3 more, and I sent it in. And they're like, why are you sending ideas? We said that was perfect. I was like, no, but you might hear something you like better. He's like, oh no, it's done already. It's done already. Like what you did was perfect. It's already in the.
Yeah, having too much fun.
I was like, oh, okay. And so, yeah, that was cool to just sometimes we got to really work hard for it, but sometimes some of the greatness is kind of, we do it subconsciously. Can I ask you a question?
Yes, of course.
Do you find that? Do you find that sometimes your natural instinct and the thing that you just did without thinking is sometimes could be the best one?
Isn't that frightening? Like,
it is.
You go in the room, do the first thing without thinking, and then you think, oh, I need to do something, but you've already done it. And that first thing is perfect. And then you try to do it better and it just gets worse. Yes. Many, many times. Often also, like this was the first house I saw in LA when we decided we're going to come here. And it wasn't even on the list of houses we were going to look at. The realtor just said, oh, by the way, there's something. Look at this quickly before we go to the houses we want to see. And I fell head over heels for this house.
Wow.
Or ideas, song ideas. Yeah, they sometimes the first thing, and then you just flow intuitively. And in an hour you have a song. And whereas other songs, sometimes you sit there 2 days and...
But let me ask you, but I'm sure you've had some great big records that took 2 days that were natural too, right? Or no, or most of the ones
My big records, like All of Me, was no more than an hour and a half with John on this piano. And then If I Were a Boy with BC Jean, no more than an hour and a half.
Wow.
The two of us.
So you do find
Big Girls Don't Cry, no more than an hour and a half, Fergie and me. The Madonna songs, that album that took longer, that was Diplo and a bunch of people in the room and everyone had their ideas. But some of the songs were flowing quite effortlessly and quick.
Wow, so you do find that the quicker ones.
And sometimes if in a 50-50, you don't question each other, you just flow. And what we do is sometimes there are these moments where it's just great. Everything, whoa, this is great. Whoa, this is great. This is great.
Yeah.
And you don't have time to even question each other. You just flow and build. And those are the magical moments we live for, I guess.
Yeah. That really is. That's really some of the happiest moments of my life is that moment.
It's like chills nonstop. Yeah. It's like magic right there happening.
Before it's even finished, before it comes out, when we're just like, oh, that's the song.
Yeah.
That moment of like, you see a whole world of possibility of what the song could be.
You witness creation. Yeah, it's incredible. And you're like, yes, you're part of it, but somehow it's just also given to you in a way. it's the magic between like the situation, the time, everything aligns for a moment. The stars align.
Doesn't get old, huh?
No.
Wow. It's literally, and I've done some drugs in my days, but yes, it's literally just the healthiest and just it's the best drug, literally.
My mom did a lot of drugs. That's why I never touched drugs. But how would you compare the drugs to the magic
a lot
of
of
the
drugs are
songwriting.
different. So, but
How? Tell me a little bit about.
I mean, I would say that moment that it's like an out of body experience, and it is like the best high, and it's like we almost chase it, like we chase that moment. I'm not going to say any names, but I've been around some superstars and big artists who they're so addicted to that moment, they would rather start like 100 songs a day, and they'll literally keep starting a song, and I'm like, bro, we got to finish one. And they but I don't blame them, because they're so addicted to chasing that moment of improvisation. I come from the jazz background.
It's like a hunter who just wants to chase and kill, and
he's not even
raise the animals or eat them, or
I mean, I get it. I come from the jazz background, so improvisation is a way of life, and you almost get addicted to that non-commitment way of life.
Improvisation is a big one. Yeah. Actually, I'm going to look for a quote quickly about improvisation that you either know or it's going to blow you away. Okay. Julian Fontana, one of Chopin's closest friends for 30 years, wrote these words about Chopin's improvisational talent. From his earliest youth, the richness of his improvisation was astounding. The few lucky ones who have heard him improvising for hours on end in the most wonderful manner, never lifting a single phrase from any other composer, those people will agree with us in saying that Chopin's most beautiful finished compositions are merely reflections and echoes of his improvisations.
Wow. Yeah. Never heard that one, but that's scary. That's scary to think about, man.
Chopin, what we know of him is already so unbelievable, and then you imagine that's just a reflection, an echo, a fraction of what he has done back then.
I was recently talking about Chopin a lot. One with my dad, who me and him, we have a musical connection, obviously, but we were talking about Chopin. And then I was talking to another great producer who you should have on here one day. His name is Roger Shahayed, but we were talking about Chopin, and we were just, there's so much to be said about him, but wow, I didn't know that. I mean, it makes sense. I mean, he's very prolific, and it's all piano works.
Yeah.
I mean, talking about commitment. I mean,
courage.
He wasn't like, oh, I want to write for a cello today. And I'm sure he has some pieces. I'm sure it's been arranged. And I do like a couple of his pieces arranged for orchestra. But he just, wow.
Crazy, right? And Keith Jarrett, have you seen him live?
I have seen Keith Jarrett. I have met Keith Jarrett. I've heard all the improv concerts.
How was that when you met Keith Jarrett? I've not met him.
He was not a friendly guy.
No?
I was young, and he was, now it's funny to me, but back then as a kid, I was just like, whoa.
Tell me all about it.
Well, so I was in the Metro North. I grew up in Connecticut, and I must have been 17, but I was already obsessed with Keith Jarrett's trio.
Yeah.
I liked the Colin concert at the time, but it wasn't my thing. I was really obsessed with the trio records. And back then, we didn't have streaming, so I'd have to actually find. And so I was on the train in Metro North. I probably was listening to Keith Jarrett Blackbird at the moment. And when we got off the train, I seen him. I'm like, is my mind playing a trick on me?
That's crazy.
Or this is actually Keith Jarrett.
Or you were manifesting. Or sometimes you know things before they happen, and you probably somehow you knew you were going to see him, so you were preparing yourself for the soundtrack.
If this was a year, no, I guess I was already obsessed with Keith for a while. No, but he just look. He was like, oh, okay, not realizing it's a 16-year-old kid. I mean, how many 16-year-old kids stop him on the street? You know what I mean? And he was just kind of like, oh, don't get all flustered. Yeah, all right, cool. See, it was. I just know that I probably would take a different approach, but anyway, he's.
Did you get to speak a little bit about music?
A little bit, not much. I didn't even. I don't even think my brain was even developed enough to even ask him a legitimate question that I didn't even know what I wanted to know. I was, you know what I mean?
To me, he's probably Cologne concert, Bremen concert. Some of those are the records I've heard the most in my life.
So I love those, and the Bremen one, I have that as well. I have both on vinyl, and I love that. And there is moments in those, and I think I understand the importance of it.
Yeah.
Gosh, I love those trio records though.
Do you improvise?
Yeah.
On your own time?
I do. It's something I try to really do more just for physical, finger warm up. But Yeah, those Keith, the trio records are just, everything from his touch to his melodic approach. And I think when people listen to Keith, they see the classical influence and the European influence, and it's amazing. But when discussing jazz, because I think Keith is a good classical pianist, but I think Keith is one of the top 5 greatest jazz. You know what I mean?
Insane.
Like,
Absolutely
I don't
insane.
know if I would put him in the classical category of being one of the top 5. So let's just, maybe if we just talk about Keith as a jazz pianist, I think we can't exclude his African American influence either. And I feel like he's got a lot of soul, you know, and so anyway, those are my favorite things about Keith is, and it's so crazy, as many compositions as he did, as many improvs as he did, like improv meaning like improv compositions. Those trio records are the same fucking jazz standard songs that have been playing for 100 years. And so I used to have this argument with my dad. He's like, "Oh, those Bob Dylan are the same 3 fucking chords. How many times can you do a 1-4-5?" But I'm like, "Dad, Keith Jarrett still plays the blues." When I met one of my favorite jazz musicians, Lee Konitz, I asked him, "Lee, like, I don't think I ever heard too many songs of yours on record." She's like, "Listen, I could write some songs and I play them pretty good, but I've been playing All the Things You Are for 75 years. He's like, "I've been playing that song for 75 years. I know how to play that one. I could have fun with that one." He's
funny.
like, "The one I wrote last week, like I'm still like remembering it. Like, you know, I need a chart." He's like, "But All the Things You Are, I've been playing that for my whole life." So it's interesting with the Keith Jarrett concert to hear him play the same fucking songs, like All of Me, or like, you know what I mean? Like the blues, the Blah Blah Blackbird, the same songs, but finding a new way to tell the Adam and Eve story. I feel like somebody told me every movie ever is just the interpolation of the Adam and Eve story.
But also then to deliver a minimalist performance that reflects the creation of the song and not the 20th reinterpretation of it where you're already in your mind fed up with it. But like when you first conceive a song, it usually has this profound simplicity to it where, yes, 3 chords and yes, very simplistic. But then to stick with this for a moment and enjoy the depth of that instead of, oh, here's a riff and here's an ad-lib and here's a blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. Get back to the essence. I'm going to say this, my friend told me an interesting comparison recently where they asked the same group of females at the age of 7, they asked a question, is abortion bad? You know, they said bad. Then they asked the same group of girls when they're like 20, is abortion? They said, oh, it's good. Then when they asked them again when they were 45, now they all said they're bad. So now the 7-year-old and the 45-year-old had the same answer for different reasons. The profound simplicity. So you have to go through the 20 different versions to come back to it for a different reason. You know what I mean? You're embodying the simplicity for a different reason, not because you don't have the whereabouts, you know.
Yeah. So we have a question. Let me see. Is are they calling in yet or not yet? Otherwise, Zoom. Yeah, Nick has joined the Zoom meeting.
But yeah, it's good. First, it's really great to meet you. So yeah, thanks for like allowing me to jump on. And obviously, someone as talented as you have worked with so many legends and names, you know, that are just massive in the industry, from, you know, Usher, Kelly Clarkson, etc., etc. Now, what I'm really interested in is you've worked with so many people, so many legendary artists, and even one that sticks out to me is someone who isn't actually naturally related to music, and that's KSI. Now, KSI really intrigues me because I think he's super talented in what he does and what he delivers. Now, firstly, how did that come about, you working with KSI, and how did it kind of compare to previous projects? Obviously, KSI more from the YouTube world as opposed to the music industry. So was it different, or how did it come about as well?
Well, I'll be honest with you. I wish I had an amazing story, a creative story with me, you know, connecting with KSI. But sometimes in this business, it's a little more, I don't want to say transactional, but with this particular case, it was well, let me just say, typically I make music from scratch with people. This one, it was I had some beats I was making during the quarantine. The quarantine made me be like, you know what? This is an email industry right now, and let me just make my beats. And so I made a beat. I sent it to this amazing writer. His name is Ivory Scott, and he's now doing an artist thing too. And Ivory Scott wrote to it, and then he told me, hey, there's this artist that would like to cut the record. Can I send it to him? I said sure. And so that's how that came about. Matter of fact, fun fact, when I was making hip hop beats, cause this is hilarious because I actually, and I don't want to talk smack about any other producer. Me personally, I prefer to not have a producer tag. I didn't want it to be like such a beautiful intro, Gitty on the track out of nowhere. I'm like, you know, me personally, I know it's George Martin when I hear him. It don't need to be, you know, George Martin. I know it's Quincy, man. When I hear that one voicing, I know it's Quincy. When I hear, you know, Rick Rubin too, we were talking about the earlier, whoever, fill in the blanks. That is the only track I think out there with a Gitty tag on it. I think it is, yeah.
Why do you think certain producers do that?
Listen, I'm not gonna lie to you. Look, one of my favorite producers, Nile Rodgers, he did have a tag, so it's actually a very wise and clever, smart thing to do. Yeah. Maybe musically, artistically, I have an opinion about it, but as far as branding wise, it's fucking really smart, man. And what was the Chic Nile Rodgers tag? Chic, you're now listening to Chic. It was like some tag that they had, and I remember hearing it recently. I'm like, oh my God, Nile Rodgers had a tag, you know, like. So it is a wise thing to do in a world where 100,000 songs get uploaded a day. It's good to like really, you know, brand yourself. Having said that, my goal is to brand myself sonically and artistically, and to be able to do that without putting a tag on it. And I don't think it's bad to have a tag. I just, for some reason, man, Nick, I just have chosen the long road. I've chosen the long way home a lot of times, and sometimes I feel like it takes longer, but it's a better payoff. And so,
yeah, sure. And ultimately, with anything like that, I think it's just up to the individual who's doing it as well, whether they want it or, you know, in life, I think in general, it's just good to do whatever you want to do and run with it. Do you know what I mean? And not, kind of, you know, worry about what other people think or anything. So, no, I mean, one more thing as well, if you've got time, what's their particular favorite song you've ever written or produced that kind of stands out more to you than, not say than others, but is there one in particular that kind of stands out to you? And if so, why?
Well, I think even though it wasn't a quote unquote hit, I think Mac Miller Come Back to Earth has been, you know, however many years later, you know, 8 years later, that one, when I see people, the way people react to that, and I'm like, I know there's something there in it. And people send me messages with that song being tattooed on their body. People send me messages saying they were suicidal until that they heard, you know, that song helped them. It's crazy 8 years later still how much that song affects people, you know? And so I mean, I think that one I would have to, but the other ones are important for other reasons, you know. I think Wild Ones by Jelly Roll and Jesse Murph was important for me because it was a goal I had forever to do country music, and that essentially kicked the doors down for me. So, you know, but yeah, I'd say Mac Miller Come Back to Earth. I'd say that was it's cool to see people still get affected by it all these years later.
Hey guys, thank you so much for watching. We truly appreciate it. I'm excited to announce that we are launching a Patreon. This will be a place where you can find out about our upcoming guests, where you can get exclusive access to BTS footage, like for instance a walk through Greg Wells' studio. You can even submit your own questions that we're going to ask in the podcast. That's going to be so much fun. By joining this community, you can help tell the stories behind some of the biggest songs in music history. Thank you for your support. It really does mean everything, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the episode. Hope to see you there.
Hi, my name is Maymay. I had a question about Selfie Part 2 because I'm a really huge fan of Hozier in that song. And I wanted to know I know that the whole like DeSelby, like the both of the songs were based on a specific concept, and I wanted to know like how that like carried over into the songwriting and the production, and like how it was working in that environment with that theme.
Okay.
So yeah, she's talking about Hozier's song DeSelby, and there's part 1 and part 2, which actually there was 3 parts at first. Part 1, it was part 1, part 2, part 3. Part 1 and part 2 became now what is known as part 1, and part 2, he's actually singing in Gaelic. Very heady stuff, man. It's very heady stuff, and even him, he was just he had to have a Gaelic coach FaceTime him in the studio, so to make sure that he's pronouncing the Gaelic words.
Why that?
What do you mean? Why
did he have to sing?
Oh my gosh! I guess I would have to ask him. But I love Andrew because he does have a humor about the whole thing. And as if the process is not challenging enough to get the perfect production and the perfect song. I was like, Andrew, I can't. I think those are perfect words. I think so. I don't understand what you listen, if you say that's the message, whatever you're saying in Gaelic, as long as I hope you're not saying, oh, Gitty sucks in Gaelic over here on the record. No. Anyway, so it was 3 parts. It turned into 2 parts, and it was it was a lot to try to figure out, like, okay. Originally, it was like one song, and
what
it was like
a
20-minute song. But
did this originate out of one of your deep literature
I think
conversations?
most of the times with Andrew, he kind of like drives it. He has the ideas, and we kind of help him iron it out. But as far as a narrative and lyrics, it's always comes from him, and so he just came and he's like, I have this idea. I know it's crazy. It's like these 3 parts, and I want it to be like an opera. You know what I mean? And so I'm like, okay. And I'd say, yeah, it's the Gaelic part was really interesting, and I think guitar wise, he really tapped into something really interesting on that. But then I think DeSelby part 2 was very interesting because I feel like that's one of the songs that kind of ushered in this new sound. Where the drums are a little more breakbeat and hip hop, and we wanted to tap into the sound where something could be gospel and hip hop at the same time, but like folky. This pot of and we were listening to a lot of old gospel records, not newer gospel records with all the gospel chops kind of a thing, more like old gospel, with more simplicity.
Beautiful.
And so I wanted to incorporate some hip hop elements, and so, man, I gotta say that song was not one that came together in an hour and a half. That one took a lot, and a lot was rewritten.
Yeah.
And what is now the verse used to be the chorus. Mm-hmm. And then that became the verse, and then the new chorus was rewritten.
Wow. And
so essentially the chord progression that's now the chorus used to be the verse. And so it was like, what do you call it? A makeover. It was like a plastic surgery in a song, But Andrew is one of those just real heavy and conceptual thinkers, just like some other people I've worked with, like Frank Ocean is like that. The artist Her could be like that as well, where there's a deeper quest there than just, than that 2.5 minute song. It's a bigger artistic statement. So
makes it that much more valuable than the concept.
Yeah. And when we were making it, I don't think any of us were thinking like, yes, this is the fucking single. This is the smash record of the year. Let's go.
Yeah.
But when you're somebody like Andrew, I call him Andrew Hozier, he before this, Too Sweet song came out, he was already selling out 3 nights at the Forum. And so he has people come dressed up as like medieval characters after, you know what I mean? Like after these songs. So it's like a different level than just having a radio smash or a viral moment.
Yes.
His fans connect different. He really, I think they're all just obsessed with, myself included, with his mind and how he thinks and his brain. And so, like you said something earlier, when you trust somebody, you just go with them. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of the times I was like, listen, Andrew, I don't know what the fuck it is that we're saying here in Gaelic, but I trust you. Let's fucking go. You want to do, I've never done an opera 3-part piece of song, but man, listen, if that's what you want to do, let's go. And then he would trust me too, where I would, you know, particularly bringing out some of the soul influence in his voice. And I was like, Andrew, I think, you know, I think blah, blah, blah this way. And he would trust me too. So yeah, that was one that was quite a theatrical, on the record and off record.
Amazing. I kind of want to give you this instrument to try it.
It's already plugged in and everything, huh?
Yeah, everything's plugged in.
It's so funny because I'm not a bass player, but I grew up, my best friend, I grew up with him being a bass player. And when I play, I just forever in my mind, I hear the way he came. We grew up hearing him play bass, and so forever in my mind, I play bass like that. But I'm not technically proficient at all on the bass, and I don't even know what to play.
Yeah.
This morning I went for a bike ride to the Burbank bike path, and I'm never listening to music because we're always making music.
Yeah.
And so I decided to listen to the Larry June, Alchemist, and 2 Chainz record, which is like really dusty throwback hip hop stuff that I don't find myself these days having access to. You know what I mean? Like, because nobody's really releasing stuff like that. But anyway, so I'm just like. Just some chill riding music. So anyway, I don't know why I decided to play that on the bass. But
So tell me a little bit about your journey. So you came from Moldavia, right?
Yeah, I grew up in Chisinau in Moldavia. It's the capital of Moldavia, and it's right near Bulgaria and right near Romania. And so
is your culture similar to the Romanian culture?
Very, 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 very similar. It's literally, we're neighbors, you know. And
so you have Dracula also.
Yes, exactly. And so like, my dad had American records. I grew up with my dad, you know, the Beatles and Stevie Wonder being like the 2 main things that my dad would play in the house. So that's why I consider my biggest influences, the Beatles and Stevie Wonder. But my dad, he plays a bunch of instruments, but he doesn't call himself a violinist. He's a fiddler. And so when I got a little older, I understood that my dad like played this really unique kind of music, Eastern European folk music. And it took me a while to come around, because before I was like, oh man, Dad,
what does it sound like? Can you?
So I'm not even good at it because it's a whole different language.
It's all right.
But this song me and my dad used to play, it just has some. I can't.
Wow.
Sloppy. I'm a little sloppy, but
I never expected that.
It's like it's a language and a technique I'm definitely rusty on, and it's not even my home base. But there's definitely been some hip hop records that I'm trying to think if anything came out. It's actually no, not yet. But there's been some hip hop records that I've kind of incorporated that kind of thing. You know what I mean? Like all the there was a J-Lo record that didn't come out actually that had this whole thing. But anyway, that's the kind of music, like Eastern European folk music. It's the kind of music I grew up listening to in the house, and I feel like one of these days I'm gonna figure out something to incorporate that in something that I do.
That's so cool.
You know?
So, how old were you when you first fell in love with music?
I was 9 when I heard the Beatles Yesterday, and I just like became obsessed with that song. And then then we moved to I was 8, I think, and just turned 9, and as soon as I turned 9 we moved to America. And then so when I came to America, I heard hip hop, I heard Dr. Dre, I heard Snoop Dogg, and I didn't speak English, so I used that as a way to learn how to speak English. And so because kids my age weren't listening to the Beatles, they were listening to hip hop, so I wanted to fit in. And so I feel like, yeah, just not just adapting to the American culture. I don't know how it was for you coming from Europe, but for me as a kid in the 90s, it was very different. It was drastically different. I had to dress differently. I had to talk differently. I had to listen to different music, and it was a whole, thing. It was a whole thing. It was a culture shock. I had two big culture shocks, and they were a few years of each other. One, when I was 9, I came to America, and I was like, "What?" And that was a big culture shock. And so I moved to like a, kind of a poor neighborhood. We lived in, inner city. And I thought that was a big culture shock, coming from Moldavia to moving to the inner city, New Haven. But it wasn't even as big culture shock as a few years later, we moved from the inner city of New Haven to a suburb. And then I had to readjust. I'm like, I thought I already am American. I had to readjust in a whole different way. And a lot of my life and career has to have been about, I want to say struggling, but overcoming a cultural adaptation of some sort. Me being an immigrant, and I'm just unpacking it all now with my therapist and figuring out how being an immigrant and a refugee and coming to a new place and almost being timid here, not knowing how I fit in here, how that relates to my relationships.
That opens you up too. Then you're really open for everything when you're vulnerable and question everything. That's a very interesting motto. Like every now and then, just step back and look at everything. Is this what I want? Who am I? What am I doing here? Where am I going? Where am I coming from?
Exactly. Yeah, that you're right. I think that's why. And I'm like, is it the openness? Is that give me a lack of commitment? Because sometimes I'm like, I have friends that they do one style. They do one style of rap. They do one style of R&B, or they do one style of country, and they just, and I could never do it. I'm just like, okay, I make R&B music, but really I love rock and roll. Really, I want to make country music. I come from jazz, and even when I was jazz, I was like obsessed with classical music, obsessed with Chopin. I'm like, is that me having a lack of commitment, or is that just my immigrant refugee mind just being open to it all, And so sometimes I talk to my manager. I'm like, man, if we just focused on one style, like the laws of branding, if you one color, one product, right? I'm like,
and that's for the rest of your life.
If we just focused on one thing, we'd be so rich right now, right?
Yeah.
But I'm like, part of me, I need to. Yeah, I guess you're right. I guess that being an immigrant is why I've been open to different styles and why I pursue, and I still would like to make country music, but I like to make rap, but I like to make R&B, and I like to make pop, and I don't know what it is. It might be ADD. I might be overcomplicating.
It's a lot of curiosity, and it's exploring, and that's what I love in life. Like improvisation in life also. Sometimes just buying a ticket somewhere and you don't know where you're landing, and then you just wing it from here to there, and you meet the most exciting people along the way, and you learn a lot about yourself. Those are the best journeys, and you do that musically. You go to places you haven't been. That's improvisation. That's true songwriting. I think is always going to things that you've never heard before, playing notes you never heard in that combination, finding words that might say something very trite, but say it in a way you haven't heard it yet.
Exactly. And then it becomes like, what if for the audience, because if you've done it, you're like, I don't want to do that. Well, I've written a song with that title again, but somebody be like, well, I've never heard a title. So how do we balance that with being self-indulgent, what's interesting to us? Because sometimes I'll do something, I'm like, no, again, with the Weeknd story. I was like, yeah, no, I did that in my sleep. Let me give you another one. They're like, no, dude, it's perfect, And so how much of that is that search for us is to keep it interesting? Do we benefit them, or when do we know to just it's never ending?
So I mean, to me, you're a true original. You're a true authentic original, which a lot of us aspire to just be true to your own path. Don't try to emulate, don't take too much inspiration from anywhere. Just as long as it, like whatever comes from the inside, your natural curiosity, pursue that, and that makes you find things that are trailblazing and haven't been there before in that way. And So along your journey, what are some lessons you've learned that you want to share with the viewers and listeners?
Control your emotions. You know, when you're upset, don't send that email. Don't send that text. Don't say those things. You know,
I've
this
been
is
there.
just in general. Yeah. I mean, here's the thing about being an improviser. Coming from a jazz world, I love coming from a jazz world, and I love that it trained me to be an improviser. And that part of my brain is really developed. However, as an improviser, what you do is you train your body to react to the very first thought. If that's what you're hearing, boom, just go there. Don't question it.
Yeah.
And emotionally, business-wise, that is not, being an improviser is not a good thing.
And it's frightening. You don't know where it is, but then you have to commit to it, and then you've done it, and you can't go back on it. You can't undo it. It's happened.
Exactly. And so that's why I think improvising is a very important thing. But I think for business, one of the things I learned is to not be an improviser, to be a prep. Well, improvising is only as strong as your
Well,
preparation.
that's why you have a manager, so you can improvise, and you don't have to compromise your improvising, and the manager can do the
but even
structured
emotionally,
thinking.
when dealing, and this goes beyond. This is my marriage. This is my, me being a dad. I think I'd say that was in the last 10 years. Maybe that's the most valuable lesson I've ever learned, is just to control my emotions, and if I'm upset or if I'm unhappy or something, just to not react to it the way I do musically.
Which is contrary to the music, because you don't want to control your emotions when you make music.
Exactly.
That's all music is an emotion.
My point, exactly. That is literally my point, and that's why I think some of the great musicians and creators we're a little crazies, because we train our brain to just not have a middleman between the emotion and the expression.
Those are the best musical compositions that are pure emotion.
You're a businessman too. I mean, you're an entrepreneur. You're not just a creative. You know what I mean?
You got to play these different roles, and like the police yourself in a way, and then go back to the child that doesn't care, carefree kid exploring, and then now you're the daddy again, and now you're the manager, and just flip roles. It's tough.
It is tough. It is tough. But I wouldn't have it any other way. I wouldn't have it any other way. I like it. And now we are in the room with other people, and I'm in a room. When I'm in a room with T-Ron Thomas, I could be the dad, and I just let him play, because he'll have ideas. And I see now, I'm like, it's very rewarding to be the dad too, and to clean up as well. You know what I mean? But that's not where I came from. I typically 9 out of 10 times I'm the fire starter in the room. But that one time when you're not, it's nice to serve too. It's nice to play a different position for a second.
And so on the pursuit of music, we have our own very original stories and weird journeys, and every now and then they intersect, and you get to sit in the room with someone who's on their own journey, but somehow it's similar, and they've had the same struggles, and boom, something happens.
And one more thing that you said, I don't even know, I've never seen this Pat Metheny quote. Somebody told me it's a Pat Metheny quote, and so I take it. It might not even be, but somebody told me that he said, you have to, as a collaborator, you have to make sure that you spend a lot of time by yourself. And as a solo musician, you have to spend a lot of time collaborating. In other words, it's a balance. Spend a lot of time by yourself, working out ideas, improvising by yourself, but also make sure you spend a lot of time in a collective. And so if you're in a collective and we're always working together, and you always got the words and I always got the chords, make sure I spend time by myself, where I'm not just relying on you as a crutch. And so I developed these moments. But if I'm always by myself and I'm producing and I'm writing, I'm always doing this. Spend some time with somebody else where you're not doing the chords that day, or you're not doing, if you're used to doing the drums, spend some time where you switch. And so I think that's a good advice I could give, because I think I mentioned earlier the importance of collaborating and letting go and delegating and allowing people to help you. But also, I could allow people to help me best when I have invested the time and the preparation into myself, instead of just, if I was just a producer who just never did drums and just got into it, I know I'd be able to go far. But working that time and spending that time working on myself allowed me to be a better collaborator, because now I could choose my collaborating partner, or even if I'm with a partner and they didn't nail the drums, I know exactly how to communicate and get that out of them. You know?
And then you got to feel out the room, and every collaborator is unique in their own ways. Like working with Charlotte, for instance, sometimes I just left her here doing her lyrics, and I felt, okay, she needs an hour by herself now. Then I come back, then we collaborate again.
Wow.
Giving someone time sometimes and stepping out and trusting them with steering the ship for a bit, because their inspiration might flow easier if you're not present, which is also a tough decision to excuse yourself from the room.
Yeah, exactly. I love that. Yes, I'm trying to think, but I think those were the main things. And just, it sounds as cheesy as it sounds, man, you have to love this. The more you love it, the better you're gonna be. It's just simple. Like Steve Jobs said, when you just doing a job just to fulfill the obligation, you're gonna do it until it's done. But if you love it, it's not done until it's perfect.
Yeah, it's true.
You're not counting the hours.
And you're not doing it for it being successful. You do it because the doing itself gives you so much satisfaction that you could do it all night. Sometimes I'm hungry, I have to go to the bathroom, but I start making music and I forget all of that, and hours later I haven't eaten, I haven't been to the bathroom, it's all gone.
Yeah, and that's how else did we become that good if we don't? We have to love it, because then the hours, instead of just like, oh, it's an 8-hour job, we just never stop, and inevitably we're gonna do better things because we're gonna inevitably spend more time. The book, Robert Kiyosaki, I forgot how to pronounce his name, Rich Dad Poor Dad, but it says an employer only is gonna pay you enough for you not to quit, and an employee is only gonna work hard enough to not get fired. And so I really don't like to think of myself as that. And even when I sign up and this artist doesn't have the budget that I'm used to getting with other labels, and if I say yes, we talked about this before the cameras were rolling. We talked about being afraid to overcommit and underdeliver, and we both have that fear. If I'm saying yes, it could be paying me a quarter of what I'm worth or what I usually get. If I say yes, I'm not gonna finish it until I could go to sleep knowing that 10, 20, 30 years from now, somebody's going to listen to it and be like, well, this is not as good as his other work. You know what I mean?
Quite often, the more you get paid, the more money there is in there, the worse the work gets. Because if you work for free, you work for a dream, you work for hope, you work for infinite potential gain, or just the immediate feeling that you get out of it, where you say, I've had the best day ever, and no matter what happens next, I've lived, I'm happy. And you do that together, and you experience something like this together, you're buzzed for a week.
I love that you said that, because there's a lot of things that suck about our business, but what nobody refuses to talk about, or not refuse, but I haven't heard too many people mention this, is the payoff. That we get paid, spiritually paid now. I'm talking about people, not real money. Unfortunately,
which is the real pay. That's the real pay.
Yeah, well, because if we were to get real a bit, the records have come out months ago that I still haven't gotten paid for it. Whatever. We know that. But spiritual reward comes before that you get paid up front, before you even send the record in. When you have that idea and you talk it, you're like, oh, we should write about that moment, or just stumbling on something great. That reward we get, goosebumps, and like you said,
it's lived the goosebumps,
before even the bounce comes through, before the edit, even before anybody comments or it gets released, or if it's a success or a flop, right there we get paid, and no matter what happens, we've lived a rich life that day.
That's so true. It's so true.
It's
a religious experience, really. Like when a great song happens in front of your eyes, it's spiritual. It's so profound, and it gives you those feelings. Like also, which when I for the first time figured out kite surfing, for instance, and I was racing over the flat water in the morning at Lake Garda, and the sun was shining at me, and the water was golden, and I was not falling anymore, and like goosebumps non-stop. And it's that feeling, or sex. I mean, it's that feeling that is so intense and so profound and so spiritual that we tap into when we write songs that just keeps us going, I guess.
Yeah, I know, and it's great to remind us because there's definitely a lot of opportunities to complain about, but it's the richest life, and it's our purpose. I mean, gosh, what's more valuable than having purpose? What's that book, The Alchemist? Personal legend, and just having purpose. I mean, again, like you said, what a rich life, man. Sometimes I'm just like, my mom is like, wow, you were gone. My mom is staying with me, by the way.
Nice.
I don't live with my mom, guys, but yeah, she's staying with me.
That's nice.
And visiting, and she's like, wow, you had such a long day. You must be exhausted. I'm like, Mom, it's not like that. I'm not like out here doing even physical labor. Like, sometimes we just talk for 4 hours, man. We just talk about everything. And so it's a really rich life we live, man.
Now that you're a dad, do you feel like you're a grown-up?
I don't. Toby, the exact feeling, I remember waking up when I was 14 years old, and I would wake up and I remember
That's
practicing rhythm changes. Before school, it was like I had 20 minutes.
Uh-huh.
And it was nothing. I ate, I got dressed, my bus was coming in 20 minutes. I had 20 minutes, and I would come and do. That's how I feel now. Like, nobody forced me to do it. And I remember I would get to school, I would do the first class, and then second period, I had nothing to do. I had a study hall, so instead of sitting in a study hall, I would go to the thing and go right back. And so now I wake up.
So life was just the breaks in between your song.
Yeah, exactly. And so, because it's just like there's always something to explore, there's always something to do. I feel that way too. Yeah. I hope this is not a flex, it's not a brag. I hope this is inspiring to other people, like producers that are signed to me. I always tell them this. Yes, I wake up days like today. I woke up and I have to do some edits for this artist, edits for this artist. But when I look, my favorite thing is when I wake up, sessions canceled, or like I have nothing. I'm like, yes. And I go into my studio. I go into my studio and I'm like,
now it's me time.
It's me time. The world is my oyster. Yes, I could go and fucking take a drive, and there's a lot of value in that and just going and getting away. But that's when the real magic happens. That to me is when I do my best work, when my mind runs free and I'm like, okay, I have a day. What can I do? I'm like, you know what? I do this thing where I try to create genres. And so I'm like, you know what? I like to, when artists come, I never have them play me their stuff. I never, like, okay, if fill in the blank, somebody comes and they're a superstar, clearly I should know what they've done. But if they say, oh, I'm on a new thing, I've been working with this producer and this, but I've been working with Toby, do you want to hear what we did? I say, no. I don't want to hear, because if I hear it, I'm going to be limited to, I'm going to end up making something. Right now, we have a blank canvas, and let me try first, and if I'm going in the wrong direction, then play me the Toby song. But yeah, that me time, that feeling, and a lot of times producers, like, they struggle with that, because if they don't have it's like a difference between being an employee and being the boss. When you're the boss, you have to create the work. You know, when you're an employer, I'm like, okay, what do you want me to do today, boss? Okay, cool, 100%, I'll do it.
100%. And I've never worked for money or worked for anybody.
Neither have I.
Same with you. Like, a lot of us, we just dreamt our life, and then the next step, we do what comes intuitively. So it's the dreams and the intuition, and then the rest, you got to have faith that something works out eventually.
Yeah. But I love that, and I encourage other creatives too to, like, you know, to just love the shit and just have the vision internally. Because if you could see yourself internally, nobody could say anything. And yes, like, I take criticism very seriously, and but I'm almost glad it took me this long to make it, and I didn't even start getting songs cut till I was in my 30s. I'm almost glad, because I had a moment when I was 25 that it almost happened, and I was with a huge superstar in a huge situation, and all my life almost changed there, and I don't think I would have been ready for it. And it took me years to know. Then it took me an extra, like, almost 7 years to dive in to know who I am. And so those days where there's nothing on my calendar, those are the days that I really explore who I am. So
outside of music, who are you?
Oh my gosh, it's so hard. Music is my breath, you know. I definitely love I love meditating.
Mm-hmm.
I love
How
exercising.
do you meditate? Do you meditate to tapes or do you meditate?
No, I
to...
started off meditating to an app called Waking Up app, but
Okay.
after about a year or so, I'm now just, if I could just clear my mind and sit in silence for half an hour, 40 minutes
Wow, that's a
with
long
my eyes
time.
closed. It's a long time, but it doesn't. When I first started, 10 minutes felt like a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this morning, my mom called like, "Hey, are you done?" And I looked, and it was 35 minutes. And I'm like,
Wow.
I just sat here for 35 minutes. It doesn't feel like that way.
And your
honestly,
mind completely empties out? Or...
No. If for 30 seconds out of those 35 minutes, if for 1 minute out of those 35, my mind is empty, then I won.
Wow.
But for 34 of those minutes, I'm like thinking
Thoughts
about what I have to do. And I'm like, no. Like,
do you push them away or do you just think them and then let them go?
They say you got to be gentle with yourself. Even though sometimes I'm like, fuck, come on, stop it. They say, don't do that. They say, just ease, like, oh, silly me. Ease that thought away. Don't get frustrated with yourself because you're working backwards.
Yeah.
So I love meditating. I'm obsessed with health now.
Uh-huh.
I make my own almond milk. I make my own ice cream. I make my own desserts. I'm obsessed with. So you mentioned drugs, you mentioned sex, but you didn't mention dessert and sugar. So that's
sugar is a drug too.
That's one of my weaknesses, and so I figured out a healthy way to make my own sugar. You know, my I don't use any processed sugar, no dairy, and I make ice cream. So anyway, it's something that I enjoy doing. You know, and then I'm a dad, man. I love being a dad.
That's big, yeah.
I love it. I love it.
Were you there for the birth of your child?
I was there for.
Isn't that incredible? Isn't that like you just?
Unfortunately, we had a very traumatic birth where she almost didn't survive, and she wasn't breathing when she came out, and we thought it was the craziest. As if seeing a human being, seeing your daughter come out of your wife's womb is not already powerful enough to then have to deal with that. So unfortunately, I couldn't really enjoy that moment as much as I could, but luckily. Mm-hmm. She ended up being fine and she's great. So yeah, I love that is part of who I am, being a dad. Like starting my day off, I would like to wake up nice and peace every morning and have some tea. But no, I wake up with like, okay, get up, mind you, 6:30 a.m. I probably was up till 1 working, and then I'm like, all right, get up. All right, put your socks on. All right, put your pants on. All right, brush your teeth. All right, go downstairs. All right, what do you want for breakfast? All right, I'm packing your lunch. All right, get your shoes on. But then that walk, as soon as we leave, we walk to school. It's a block away, and that moment is just the most serene. So
I dropped my kid off to school this morning, and I was like, there's something really special about handing your kid over to the teachers. And
what is it? It's amazing. I love that.
It's really special.
So yeah, that's who I am. And
do you do any sports?
I mean, I exercise. I like to ride a bike, and that's my thing.
Bike riding's great.
I'm such a nerd. So for me because I couldn't find a way to exercise and find the time. And I used to not be able to find an hour in a day between being a dad and being a producer. I'm like, where do I find this hour in my day to exercise? So what I did was, I bought a bike, an indoor bike. I put a laptop stand on it, and I love it. People, I wake up to like text, oh, where's the edit? Did you send it? Did you send it? And so I'm exercising and I'm editing, and when I'm done, I feel like a lot of times I get anxiety. Like we producers get anxiety, like, holy shit, I gotta send all these edits, and oh my god, they didn't like my drums. I gotta sit there and redo the drums, and I get this anxiety. The more I have, the more. But when I'm exercising, I'm redoing the edits, and I'm like working out. So when I'm done with the workout, I feel so good physically because I'm like sweated out. Yeah. And I'm like, send, the edit is done. So I'm just like, wow, kill two birds. So it's really crazy, but I work while I exercise. Not great. Always, but yeah. What else, man? I don't know. I love reading, man. I feel like I don't do it enough, but that was a big part of my life where literature was just took over, especially as a songwriter, man. I tell all the artists, like, how do you even find inspiration if you're not reading? Yeah. My favorite thing is I used to love to pair up my favorite lyricist with my favorite musical lyricist. Oh. And I used to. You mean your favorite book? Yes, my favorite prose writer. With like I always thought that Bukowski and Tom Waits, they're the same. They're kind of the same. You know what I mean? They're like this. It's like the same.
I wish I had
thing.
read Bukowski and I could say yes. I know what you mean.
He has a lot of short stories and a lot of poems. If you read one short story, one poem, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about.
Okay.
It's bathroom humor.
Wow.
It's 3-year-old genius bathroom humor.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's just dirty man shit. And that's why, Tom Waits, I always thought that, Joni reminded me of one of the French existential writers. I always thought that Miles Davis, although not a lyricist, Miles Davis, his sound and approach to art reminded me of Hemingway. It's very objective.
Wow. What are like 3 records that you think that you would recommend everyone to listen to?
My favorite album of all, David Foster asked me what my one Desert Island album, and that is John Coltrane, Johnny Hartman, Lush Life album. Just be prepared to cry. I listen to the album, I just literally lose myself.
Wow.
I mean, gosh, this is so hard. It's so hard to do, right?
Whatever comes to your mind first.
I mean, like the Beatles albums are great. Stevie Wonder, when he had those 5 albums, Music of My Mind, Feeling Final Finale, Songs in the Key of Life, Talking Book. That's that whole stretch of albums. They kind of, I see them as one thing, The early Joni thing, I see the first 4 Joni albums as one thing too. I could just get lost in that,
music that stood the test of time.
Yeah. Prokofiev. Anybody out there listen to Peter and the Wolf or Romeo and Juliet? I mean, Chopin. Crazy, right?
And the key change. And then
unbelievable. I know. I feel like, do people in America, are you from America? Sorry, do you know that what he just sang?
Well, I went to music school. So
okay, so you didn't know that. Okay, all right. Because I'm like, do you guys even? Anyway, it's just. Okay, where else do we go? Bob Dylan, another side of Bob Dylan. That's one that's really important. Crosby, Stills and Nash albums are really important. John Coltrane. Let me see, hip hop. Tribe Called Quest, Rhymes, Beats, and Life changed my life. I'm just gonna say some albums that people probably like. What?
I think that's really helpful.
Okay.
Yeah.
One of the albums that really fucked me up and changed my life, and I'm never going to hear music the same after it, is Slum Village Fantastic Volume 2. And if those that know that is some of the best body of work of one of the greatest producers to ever do music, which is a man by the name of Jay Dilla. And he, what to me is, outside of hip-hop, just one of the greatest minds in music of all time. And he did big records, but then he did those underground thing where he did with his friends, his own group, and that album is just,
I'm gonna listen to all of those.
No,
I must
seriously.
admit I haven't listened to hardly any of them.
Okay. There's this guy that nobody's ever heard of. He's from London, and his name is Lewis Taylor, and the self-titled Lewis Taylor album from 1996 is one of the greatest bodies of work ever created. I truly believe, even though it's not on an interview somewhere I'm aware of, but that D'Angelo wouldn't have been D'Angelo without. I'm pretty sure he was obsessed with that album, the self-titled Lewis Taylor album.
Wow.
And of course, I'm gonna be on my way home and thinking of albums. Oh, why didn't I say this? Why didn't I say this? I'm just trying to like a little bit of every genre. Oh, Kraftwerk, Man Machine. Come on, Germans. Come on. I gotta. No, but seriously, Computer Love.
Yeah.
Those 2 albums, Computer Love and Man Machine.
Uh-huh.
Oh my God. It's what I call analog electronic music, because a lot of electronic thing has this like digital thing to it, but you listen to that.
And you know Rammstein?
It's breathing. Oh yeah.
Rammstein, Du hast.
Yeah. I don't know that album, but yeah. But yeah, Man Machine, you hear that and it's just like, it's breathing. It's electronic music, but it's alive, man.
Wow.
I mean, Kind of Blue, Sketches of Spain, Yeah, the Miles Davis albums are important, but also I really like Live Evil. That changed my life. Live Evil, and I don't know if you would like it. You know, a lot of people don't like that album. A lot of people don't like the Miles 70s shit, but me, I was into Jimi Hendrix and I was into John Coltrane, and when I heard Miles Davis Live Evil, I understood my purpose in life. I understood that there's a world where Jimi Hendrix and John Coltrane lived together. And so that album, you know, it's no songs on there. They're just jamming, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Hermeto de Pascal, actually, you should listen to that one song. If you were to listen to one song, Hermeto de Pascal is one of the greatest composers and musicians. He's a Brazilian multi-instrumentalist.
Wow.
And he was the biggest inspiration for Miles. And the name of the song is Tu I forgot. It's like a weird Portuguese title, but there's a Hermeto de Pascal composition on that Miles Davis album that is just life changing. I think The Shape of Jazz to Come by Ornette Coleman. These are just Lonely Woman by Warren Coleman. I mean, yeah. Sorry, yeah. That's,
no, this is great. This is
I didn't give a rock album. Okay, for me, Jimi Hendrix Live at Woodstock, that changed my life. I think that's very important. Okay, I'm done. I'm done. Something will come up while we're talking, but yeah.
I mean, thank you so much for this. This is like so nurturing and so much to dig into even more layers to uncover underneath. It's very valuable.
Purple Rain Prince. Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I think we're great. This is amazing. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this episode, please like and subscribe. And if you give us a review, we'd be thrilled about a 5-star review. And thank you so much for gracing me with your presence. That was special.
Thank you, man. Thank you for having me here.